There's no other way to interpret it than the board being pressured by a Zionist lobby or something of that nature. A lot of major institutions in Australia are facing significant pressure to silence Palestinian voices that are criticising the genocide Israel is committing against Palestine. Last week on Thursday, I had already agreed to 2 sessions of the Adelaide Writers' Festival next month, and I received a letter and formal statement from the board of the Adelaide Festival informing me that Dr. Abdul Fattah had been removed as a speaker. Now, to my knowledge, he's one of only 2 Palestinian authors that were featured at the event, and in the statement there were clear conflations made as to her being culturally sensitive and linking her presence at the festival to the Bondi terror attack, whilst also noting that she had no part in that. And it felt to me that a Palestinian author was being conflated as culturally sensitive in her identity with this event in proximity to the Bondi terror attack that Australia's just experienced. And to me, that felt all wrong. It felt like an act of censorship and racism, and I immediately withdrew from the festival. I think the immediate reading of the statement, that conflation of a Palestinian author with the Bondi terror attack as being culturally sensitive, immediately raised alarm bells in me as an act of censorship and potentially an act of racism again against her personally. And so it felt like the only right thing to do to stand up in solidarity with her, but to also send a clear message to the festival that that's not what I'm willing to participate in as an author. There's no other way to interpret it than the board being pressured by a Zionist lobby or something of that nature. A lot of major institutions in Australia are facing significant pressure to silence Palestinian voices that are criticising the genocide Israel is committing against Palestine. So it's really difficult to interpret this as anything other than further suppression of those voices. Absolutely, and we're seeing this equivalence drawn between Renda's work and what those comments Friedman made, when actually Friedman was making clear statements that were linking Palestinians to be vermin that needed to be eradicated. Like, when we're looking at that, that's significantly different to the comments that Dr. Abdul Fattah has made. And so I think that there is something false here that's in that comparative that's being made by a lot of media outlets in Australia and abroad. And I think that there's a real concern here, exactly as you've suggested, that there is selective censorship happening and being applied to Palestinian voices and advocates.